Dune, Book 1, Part 1, Chapter 2. Beware of compromises. They are more often weapons of attack than tools of peace. General Esmar Tuek, Strategy Concepts. Ula Bowers sat alone in the executive cabin of his diplomatic craft, thinking about the foolish nobleman he was transporting to Renaissance. Fishing. Jesse Lincoln had been out on a boat performing the work of common laborers. What a complete waste of time. The quarters aboard Bowers' spacecraft were crowded and austere, but he understood the reason. For such a long journey between star systems, fuel costs placed strict limitations on discretionary mass. Meals were nothing more than tablets of concentrated melange, another sign of the widespread importance of Dune World's product. After more than a week in transit, the passengers and crew would begin eating great quantities of real food upon reaching their destination. Bowers was perpetually hungry when he traveled through space, and it didn't put him in the best of moods. He heard his stomach growl. Taking another melange tablet, he savored the cinnamon flavor and felt the drug's soothing effects seep through him. Spice made a person feel better and increased the efficiency of human metabolism, streamlining the intake of energy from food. From a practical standpoint, this meant that the bulky supplies normally needed for long space voyages could be reduced to a case or two, permitting cargo holds to be used for other things. Bowers had heard a theory that melange might even increase the human lifespan, though with only a few years of recorded use. No long-term studies had yet proven the claim. While the diplomatic transport snipped shortcuts through the fabric of space, Counselor Bowers kept to his own cabin, making no attempt to socialize. Ironically, though he had great diplomatic skills, he didn't really much care for people. 2 levels below Bowers, Jesse sat in a passenger compartment with 6 hand-picked members of the Catalan Home Guard as his escort. He preferred spending time with his own men anyway. He had chosen his best fighters, including General Tuek. A slender man with olive skin, the old veteran had stooped shoulders and a manner that demonstrated loyalty, while at the same time rebuffing intimacy. His thinning gray hair was receding over a leathery tanned scalp. The bright red stains around his lips signified his successful battle against Sappho addiction, and he wore the marks like a badge of honor. The security chief had faithfully served both Jesse's father and brother, saving both of them from repeated assassination attempts, though not from their own recklessness. Sworn to serve any head of House Lincoln without preference, in recent years Tuek had actually become Jesse's friend. In a rare, unguarded moment, he'd once said that it was refreshing to see a man make important decisions based on substance rather than a whim or a roll of the dice. "We need to be ready for anything, Esmar," Jesse told him as they sat down to a game of strategy stones in the cramped compartment. Meanwhile, the other 5 guardsmen blocked off the narrow corridor to practice rapier, dueling, and hand-to-hand combat, preparing to defend Nobleman Lincoln against any attacks. I lie awake at night thinking of things to be concerned about, my lord, Tuek said, as he began to beat Jesse in the first game. My greatest hope is that Valdemar Hoskiner will slip up, so I can find an excuse to kill him while defending you. He needs to pay for the death of your father. Voldemort won't slip up, Ismar. We weren't summoned to Renaissance by accident. You can bet your last credit that the Hoskinaires have a clever plan in mind. I fear it's too subtle for us to see yet. Far too subtle. From throughout the star-spanning empire, wealth flowed to the planet Renaissance, enabling the Grand Emperor to stage any gaudy extravagance he could imagine. And many generations of rulers had imagined a great deal of extravagance. The central palace was a huge spherical construction, inlaid with millions of crystalline panels. Armillary arcs curved along what would have been latitude and longitude lines on a celestial sphere, while lights spangled the outer wall, marking the astronomical locations of Emperor Inton Wuda's star systems. In the precise center of the sphere, the Emperor sat at the symbolic zero coordinate, thus presiding, figuratively, at the center of the known universe. As he went to meet the Emperor, Jesse wore the formal cloak and pantaloons that Dorothy had selected from his rarely used wardrobe of courtly attire. His dark hair was oiled and perfumed with a cloyingly sweet scent that turned his stomach. Lotions covered the calluses on his hands. General Tuek inspected the 5 Catalan guards, then made a show of removing even their ceremonial weapons before they entered the imperial palace. The imperial presence. Only Tuek and Jesse knew that his men still carried hidden weapons. Sharp strangling wires concealed his strands of hair, self-stiffening sleeves that could be turned into cutting edges. Without doubt, the Hoskinaires had taken similar precautions. The question was whether Valdemar would be so bold as to provoke a bloody attack right there in the throne room. After a melodious fanfare, a bellowing crier announced the arrival After a melodious fanfare, a bellowing crier announced the arrival of just Nobleman Lincoln. Using the 5 primary languages of the empire, head high, Jesse marched toward the throne. Suspended in a curved chair atop a high monolith, Grand Emperor Wuda was a plump, bald man with gelatinous skin. Though he was relatively young, a hedonistic life had made him age badly, and his body had already sagged into a fleshly dumpling. Even so, he controlled more wealth and power than any other human in the known universe. Jesse stepped back as a second fanfare preceded the crier's multilingual introduction of Nobleman Hoskinaire from Gidi Prime. Valdemar was strikingly tall, like a walking tree. He wore a black reflective weave suit that shimmered like oily shadows around his lanky frame. Dark hair, combed back from a prominent widow's peak, surmounted a thick and heavy brow, on which was tattooed the sinuous shape of a horned cobra, the symbol of House Hoskinaire. Valdemar's nose jutted from his face, and the lantern jaw seemed designed for extra power when he wished to clamp his teeth together. Keeping his gaze focused on the foot of the Grand Emperor's throne, Valdemar delivered a perfect, formal bow. Never once did he glance at the Lincoln party. 6 Hoskinair bodyguards, the same number as Jesse was allowed, wore imposing studded uniforms. Their faces were blunt and blocky, almost subhuman, all of them also bearing the horned cobra tattoo, but on their left cheeks. 2X sneered at them, then turned back when the Grand Emperor summoned both noblemen. Dutifully, the pair marched along opposite paths toward the towering pedestal. The towering Dutifully, the pair marched along opposite paths toward the towering pedestal that held the high throne. Nobleman Nobleman Jesse Lincoln, you have filed a complaint on behalf of the Nobles' Council regarding the Hoskiner monopoly on spice production. We normally ask aristocratic families to settle their disputes without imperial intervention. You have more straightforward means at your disposal: personal combat between champions, mutual art mutual arbitration, even canly. None of these is deemed satisfactory? No, sire, both Jesse and Valdemar said in union, as if they had choreographed their response. The Grand Emperor's fleshy face descended into a scowl. He turned toward Jesse, his tiny eyes set deep within pale folds of fat. Nobleman Hoskiner has offered a compromise, and I suggest that you accept it. I will entertain any proposal, so long as it is fair and just. Jesse glanced over at Valdemar, who avoided looking at him. House Hoskiner has met our spice requirements for 18 years, the Emperor said. We see no reason to change this profitable enterprise simply because other families indulge in a fit of pique. We must be convinced that any charge is to our advantage. Nobleman Nobleman Hoskiner is justifiably proud of his accomplishments. To prove a point, he is willing to surrender his monopoly on Dune World for a period of 2 years. House Lincoln, and Lincoln alone, will assume control of spice harvesting. If, at the end of the probationary period, Lincoln has produced more than Hoskiner did in the previous 2-year period, we will award spice operations to his household in perpetuity. You may then distribute contractual shares to the Nobles' Council as you deem fit. A contest, Majesty. The Grand Emperor did not like to be interrupted. Nobleman Hoskiner has shown great generosity in making this offer, and he demonstrates an implicit confidence in his own abilities. If you can do better, then the monopoly is yours. Do you accept these terms as a reasonable resolution to your dispute? Jesse saw from the barely contained smile lurking on Valdemar's face that this was exactly what his rival wanted, but he could see no way out. Am I to be allowed access to the Hoskiner production figures, so that we can determine at what levels we must produce? Hoskiner stepped forward. Sire, my crews did not have a challenge or a target. We did our best and provided the required quota to the imperial coffers. Providing nobleman Lincoln with an exact target would give him an unfair advantage. Agreed, the Grand Emperor said, with a darting glance toward Valdemar. Jesse was convinced they had arranged this beforehand. The Lincoln Patriarch did not give up easily, however. But Hoskiner has had years to set up his infrastructure, train his crews, buy his equipment. My people would be starting from scratch. Before I go to Dune World and begin the 2 years, I must be allowed an acceptable ramp-up time. Will House Hoskiner leave some of their specialized equipment for us to use? Valdemar scowled coolly, and his response sounded rehearsed. House Lincoln will already have the advantage of our experience, the data from 18 years of working the sands. Our sand miners are to learn by trial and error. Wait a minute. Oh, this is wrong voice. Valdemar scowled coolly, and his response sounded rehearsed. House Lincoln will already have the advantage of our experience, the data from 18 years of working the sands. Our sand miners have had to learn by trial and error, and endure many setbacks. My engineers designed the spice harvesting equipment and techniques, and it didn't always work well. In many ways, my opponent is already starting out with a more favorable position than we Hoskiners ever had. When his brow furrowed, the horned cobra tattoo looked as if it was coiling, ready to strike. With a bored gesture, Emperor Wuda said, The disadvantages seem to balance the advantages. Sire, we must have some equipment to begin with, Jesse insisted, then smiled. Otherwise, the spice operations will cease entirely until we have everything in place. It could take months. I doubt the Empire would want that. He waited. No, that would be unconscionable. No, that would be unconscionable. The Grand Emperor sniffed. Very well. House Oskaner is hereby instructed to leave 12 spice harvesters and 3 carryalls on Dune World. They will be considered alone, to be repaid at the very... They will be considered alone, to be repaid at the end of the challenge, regardless of the outcome. Valdemar's features grew stormy, but he said nothing. Jesse pressed his advantage. And may I also request an imperial edict that neither nobleman Hoshkaner nor anyone connected to him may interfere with my operations? After all, House Lincoln did nothing to hinder his in the past 18 years. The Grand Emperor's impatience bordered on outright annoyance. We will not be drawn into the minutiae of your petty dispute, nor will we mediate a squabble that has already taken too much of our precious time. Additional rules and restrictions would only complicate the matter. At the conclusion of 2 years, House Lincoln will compare its tally to that of House Hoskiner. As your sovereign, I must remain neutral, so long as the flow of spice is uninterrupted. Jesse knew he would do no better. He bowed formally. I accept the challenge, sire. No rules. The Grand Emperor folded his hands across his swollen belly and smiled. Jesse thought he could hear the steely jaws of a trap clamping shut around him.